Hello, everyone. I'm Geni Whitehouse speaking with you about how you can help your clients weather the storm. So, we're in some very, very interesting times right now. And so I'm here to talk to you about, what we can do to really form a tight partnership with our clients. It's our role as accountants to really add more value than we ever have before, especially when times are difficult and when we're in sort of a fluid environment these days. And so now is the time for us to really embrace the partnership opportunity that's in front of us. And again, our clients need us now in a way that I don't think they ever have before. And it's time for us to really shine. So, our clients are running around in a lot of cases trying to figure out where to focus. There's so many things coming at them. I mean, just think about any single aspect of the period that we've been going through, and hopefully we're going to come out at the other side relatively soon. But think about just the challenges of figuring out what to do with payroll, what to figure out with all the PPP loans, the EIDL loans, all the government incentives, the law changes that have applied to tax. I mean, of course, they're not wrestling with that like we are, but they know there are things that are different than what they used to be. And so they're trying to find their way to better decision making. And that's where we, as accountants who have decision making tools, powers, and abilities, can really apply those skills to help those clients figure out where to stop the bleeding. The cash might be flowing out. They might be having challenges with their own customers making payments and things like that. And so we really have to step into the full authority that we have as accountants and really embrace the advisory space and the role that we can provide because they need us to. We can't sit by the sidelines anymore. It's our time to shine. And so if we're going to do that, it requires us to shift. And, I'm an accountant. I'm a CPA. I work with wineries in the Napa Valley part of the time. I have a bookkeeping business that's based on QuickBooks Online. And I'm also a speaker and writer and author and do a bunch of different things. But, in all of that, it comes together in a way that requires me to use different aspects of my brain. I have to, in an advisory role, be willing to think differently. And, as accountants, we're wired for same as last year and checklist based and, linear thinking. And so it's very difficult for us to shift some of our approaches that have been ingrained year after year in the way that we operate, the way that we deliver service to our clients. And so the first thing we have to do is think about a different mindset. And again, that's a challenge for us. And then we're going to talk about some new tools that are going to help us in some ways shift the mindset and also shift our clients' mindset as well. And then we need to apply some new skills. And we might need to just leverage the skills that we already have. But again, it's up to us to really help our clients find their way and to invest the time and energy to try to make this transition. So the first step, and again, I think this is the hardest part, it's a mental shift that we have to make. And that is a mindset change. And this is where we start, right? We started, and this is me, my nerdy little brain. I got to go into my own brain and start giving myself permission to not have all the answers. And, that's really difficult because we expect ourselves to be able to swoop in with our, golden lasso or our red cape and provide all the answers and to solve all the problems. But and we think that we have to become the experts in everything in order to be true advisors who can help our clients succeed and improve their results. And in fact, the truth is the opposite of that. Our role, if we really want to be advisors, is to help them become their own experts. Most of our clients, I'm in the wine industry, and I'm originally from South Carolina. So you think I'm an expert in wine? I know where to buy the Franzia in a box, the big things with the stopper, and you put it in the fridge and you just put your cup in there. That's my wine experience. So do you think there's any possible way that I can show up in wine country, moving here from Atlanta and present myself as an expert on a business that I don't even understand? I can't pronounce much of what these folks sell. So, if that was my approach, I would have failed miserably. And somehow I knew that what I needed to do instead was to bring one of my core strengths to bear, which is not that I'm a basset hound, but I am, but this curiosity, my ability to go, I don't know why you're doing that. And, when you walk into an environment where you don't have preconceived notions or you don't think you know everything, you're much more inclined to ask different questions and really the good questions. They might appear dumb and you might feel kind of, afraid to ask something, but I'm doing it all the time. And I think by not claiming that I know everything and asking those questions, we're bringing new insights to bear for that client. And so again, the more questions that we ask, the more we allow them to tap into their own knowledge, the more they elevate themselves in our eyes, and the more they value what we do. So it's kind of the opposite of what we think. It's that we are about bringing this perspective to those clients, and that's what we bring as external accountants. Our exposure to lots of different businesses, to lots of different tools and applications, gives us insights that we can share, and gives us, again, different questions that we can ask. And one of our native strengths as accountants is inquiry. It's part of what we do as auditors, it's part of what we do as tax professionals. We are skilled at interviewing techniques, and we're naturally good at listening. So more listening, less talking. Again, the basset hound has pretty big ears. That's why it's one of my symbols. We should be doing more of the ears and less with the mouth. We should be listening as much as we can, and that's how we really become a partner in that client's business success. It takes a lot of this grits, y'all, a lot of grit and determination for those clients to just keep going day to day. I mean, we feel it in our own environment. It's really kind of exhausting just to deal with the logistical activities that we have to go through day after day, much less the work stuff and all the paperwork and all the other things that we have to monitor and manage. And so it's our job to support them and be as responsive as we can, and help them have the energy to apply their grit and determination. We really need to be supportive to these clients who are struggling day to day with all kinds of things, and not just show up again at the end of the year when all the pain and suffering has already happened for them. So that mind shift, you have to embrace that first, and then you can start looking for tools. And, sometimes the tools can actually help us change our minds. And it's one of the things that I discovered in my own journey. So I was a partner in a CPA firm in Atlanta. I started with Deloitte in tax. I did a bunch of tax roles. I spent 15 years doing tax, and eventually made it to partner in a tax firm, in a CPA firm in Atlanta, a small firm doing tax. I also did computer consulting with clients, and I was frustrated in the tax role by my inability to really have an impact on those businesses. And I would sit down with these clients and help them improve their business and work through processes and transactional stuff. And then I would go back to the office and do tax work, which was just totally unrewarding. I'd have to tell somebody bad news 90% of the time. And so I left as soon as I made partner. I realized that wasn't where I belonged. I went into technology, but it was finding technology that allowed me to have a conversation around the metrics that actually helped me change the mindset that I had. And so from those tools that I discovered, I went in search of a methodology that would support the technology that I found. And that's where I found my way to what really changed my life as an accountant. I found a toolkit called Mentor Plus, and there are a bunch of toolkits now. I mean, Mentor Plus, this was in early 2000. And I found this when I was working for a software company, because I was looking for training around advisory that I could use to supplement the technology that I was trying to talk about. And I was when I saw this toolkit, I was just like overwhelmed. I went, why didn't I know about this when I was inside a CPA firm? Because this is exactly what I needed. I needed a methodology I could follow that would guide me through this stuff that I hadn't really done before, how to have conversations around things that I didn't know. And so I needed a roadmap, and I think we all do. Now, when I started, there weren't very many tools or roadmaps or even people talking about how to do advisory. They've always been talking about that we should, but there aren't many tools that say, here's what you do, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And that's what I needed to have the confidence to really start doing this with my clients. And so the Mentor Plus methodology it's called Level 5 Advisory Services. And it's about taking us from this traditional hindsight perspective, this historical view that we bring to bear as accountants, and moving us into this foresight, proactive perspective where our clients need us to be. And so it's a journey of that. And it really starts at where we're most comfortable at level 1, which is the core traditional accounting services, and it moves us into a sort of Kaizen continuous improvement process offering service that we can provide. And so along the way, there are tools, there are methodologies, there are presentational decks that you can use. It's a complete package set of everything that you need to know in order to be an advisor, all providing different levels of step-by-step guides. Many of them are still a little more conceptual. And the reason that this one works for me is because it's hands-on stuff. It's not just here's why and that you need to do it. It's here's how you start, and here's how this looks when you're doing client. So I want to share this with you. You can take it and use it. You can apply this with whatever else you're already doing, but it gives you some guidance into what advisory really looks like. And I'm doing this every day when I'm working with wineries. And I can tell you that it's just mind-boggling what you're able to do just by having the confidence to ask these kinds of questions and knowing that you have something that you can apply to help. So pick something that works for you, whatever methodology that might be. If this is one you're interested in, reach out to me and I'll be happy to tell you more about it or work with you on it. So here's how this works, and I'm going to show you some tools. Again, these are tools that you can apply with or without the methodology, but I want you to see the kinds of things that we need to be doing at each level of client service. So the first level is really the core stuff where many traditional firms have stayed for life. This is where we are. This is the bread and butter of the accounting profession. This is where traditional firms spend most of their time. And that's in building the sort of core financial technical foundation around bookkeeping, accounting. We used to call bookkeeping write-up back in the olden days. Accounting services where we're doing, financial statement prep and audit and all that stuff, compilations and reviews, the tax return services, and some of those skills. But what I'm here to tell you is even at that level of service, there is more that we can be doing. Even if we do nothing else, if we continue to offer core traditional services and not depths of advisory services, there are things we need to do to make what we provide more relevant to our clients and to make it more proactive in terms of what we're able to show them. Level one is still a very historical perspective. We're looking at what happened. We're counting the dead bodies on the battlefield. We're not preventing the deaths before they happen. And so our role has to become more about this proactive, here's what we see, and here's what we need to do about it. But still, at this level one, I want you to think about how we can communicate the financial information in a way that resonates more clearly with those clients, because that to me is our biggest challenge as a profession. It's our inability to communicate what we do in a way that the value of those services can be appreciated by the clients. And tools like the ones I'm going to show you are going to help you bridge that understanding gap that keeps us from getting the value that we so desperately deserve. We are doing a service for the world. We're powering the economic engine of this planet through the information that we have at our fingertips. And it's our job to enlighten those people who depend on this data so that they can do what they need to do to keep employing people. If this economic engine breaks, then nobody's going to have ability to survive. We're powering the businesses that power the payroll. And you see how important payroll was when the government's first choice of funding to get to people was through small businesses. They funded the businesses to fund the employees. So it really heightened the connection, the importance of these businesses to keep us all going successfully. And so it's our job to support those folks in doing the jobs that they are doing. So this is part of QBO now. I love that they've integrated this. There's this whole business performance aspect that's part of QuickBooks Online. And this is my sample winery that we use for all of our case studies in my CPA firm, Le Rouge Winery. It has its own website and everything. And so it gives me a bridge. And this is one of the things that I've discovered, that, breaking down the fear is the first step to getting somebody to listen and learn. And so this view is a great way to just introduce your clients to some of the aspects of what's going on in their business. And most of the owners, from my experience, are not looking at what's happening in QuickBooks Online. They're relying on somebody else, and they're not engaged with what's happening because they don't really want to see a financial statement, black and white numbers on a page. But this view will tend to appeal better to that owner. So whether it's and this is in the accounting only view here. So you need to bring it up on your screen and then share that in a Zoom meeting with them and just talk about some of the stuff that you see. Now, most of the owners are going to intuitively know this is going on. So they're not going to go, yeah, yeehaw, but it might give you some conversational guidance here. What happened in this month that made, in my example here, March so bad? And let's talk about what it is. Is it something we can work on, or was this just an aberration? Or, let's talk about what's going on, and maybe we can make some decisions about what needs to change. So this is at level one, core accounting. All we're doing is bringing up this business performance screen and bringing information to that owner in a much more visual way. And the goal is to open the dialogue. It is not, again, to come in, swoop in and say, well, you need to fix that, fire so-and-so, and, cut that. It's, where do you think you can tweak some of these aspects of your business to achieve your financial goals? If you're going to have that conversation, of course, you need to know what their financial goals are. And that's one of the questions that you should be asking them as well. The next thing I would advise, still at that level one, at the core basic financial stuff, is a review of our chart of accounts for that client. This is a service that many of us do if there's an issue or if they come to us and say, I need to find better insights. But I think we should be driving a chart of accounts review for a client. And that starts by asking them, are you getting the information you need from your financial reporting? And in most cases, those owners are not. They're probably going outside of the financial statements and presenting data in a different way in an Excel spreadsheet or somewhere else because they aren't getting the financial insights from that P&L or from that balance sheet. And one of the problems I think we have as accountants is that we create a chart, a financial statement output that works for us. It's GAAP compliant. It looks pretty according to, all the balance sheet is lined up in order of liquidity. And that's fine. We don't want to mess with that balance sheet stuff. But the P&L we do for our standards, it can be as summarized as possible because we don't want to see all that detail. But if you're a business owner, we need to use classes. We need to break it out by department. We need to pull out all the revenue categories. We need to do different things for that P&L in order to make it more managerial in nature versus GAAP compliant or FASB specific, which meets our requirements, but not theirs. We need to make sure they're not doing tax basis accounting, which is the worst way to manage a business. And so just sitting down and saying, let's look at your financials. Let's look at your chart of accounts. Let me ask you, what of this matters to you? What are you using day to day to see if your business is on track? I always ask that question. And it is never, I'm running the P&L. It is always, I'm running something else that I don't get from my core accounting or from my accountant. I'm doing my own thing over here. And that may or may not tie out to what we're doing over at accounting. So we think we're doing all the great stuff because our bank statement reconciles and because it's GAAP compliant and EBITDA is where it's supposed to be and all that stuff. But it's useless to that owner. So our job is to find a bridge between what we need and what they need. So ask them, what is the most relevant insight that you look to? And most of them might say the bank balance. And if that's the case, then make sure that's highly visible and they can track that over time. Create some graphs that work for that. So find out if the information that they're getting is supporting their needs for insight in the business. And again, as an advisor, that should be our goal. What insights can I make visible and available to you that are timely, relevant, and then accurate? The third requirement, especially in rapidly changing environments like we're in right now, timeliness and relevance are 10 times more important than 100% accuracy. Now, I'm not encouraging you to do sloppy work, but I'm encouraging you to get it out there faster than you normally would, even if it's not perfect, and say, these are not final, but I wanted you to have something to look at while we're still working on whatever we're still working on. There's always something that's still being worked on from my experience. So that's level one, core stuff. If you do nothing else, just think about more service delivery value that you can deliver at that level and how you can get insights in the hands of these owners faster than you normally would in a non-fluid kind of environment that we're in right now. All right, level two, and we're still moving from this accuracy focus to this relevance focus. We're moving from hindsight to foresight as we work our way through different levels of service that we can provide to our client. At level two is when we start to move out of that standard traditional mode as a firm, and we start becoming more proactive in what we provide. So there are two aspects of this section of level two. There's this sort of insight and analysis perspective that we want to share. We really have to start educating our clients. And, that's, again, one of the biggest failings that I think we have as a profession is that we tend to use our own knowledge as kind of a weapon. It's kind of our power that we know stuff that they don't know. And that is a disservice to us because I don't value something I don't understand. And so we need to spend a lot more time educating not only owners in a way that is not condescending, but also their teams, because we have owners trying to drive financial outcomes with a building full of people who don't understand at all what their connection is to the financial outcomes. And so at level two, we're going to try to provide some insights and conversational training to leaders and to owners and to teams. And we're going to show them, not tell them, what some of these ratios mean and how they're connected to each other. And that's an extremely powerful thing to do. Again, if you pick one thing out of each one of these and just try it with your client, you're going to see how light bulbs come on in a way that they never come on when you pass out the financial statements in those nice little binders and the client puts them in the same drawer every single time, the same drawer that they stick the tax return in that they don't look at. That shows you that there's no perceived value in that information, and they'll go back to doing whatever they did before. So it's our turn, our time now at level 2 to take some of this ratio data that we do, we might pencil it in, and turn it into something that helps that owner make better decisions. And so this is a case where tools actually help me change my mindset. So I found back in the day a tool that had an interactive goal seek capability. And if you're as old as I am, you've been doing this for a long time, it was actually called ACPAC CFO. It was like in the desktop product. And it was the first time I had a ratio tool that let me change things so that I could communicate to my client the interrelationship of different factors from both the P&L and the balance sheet. Because I'd been always trying to answer the question for those clients, their number one question, which is, if I made a profit, where's my cash? And you would talk about things like the balance sheet drivers and the inventory's growing too fast and accounts receivable, but they never got it. You're just scribbling on the ratios and you're doing a bunch of math on the printed ugly financial statements. And it just doesn't connect to that CEO. They don't get it. But when I found a tool like that, and this one is a much more a cloud-based similar concept, and I'm always on the search for tools like this that have an interactive capability. It's not just giving me a chart, which is better than a piece of paper, but still I can't do anything to the chart and show the impact of changes. And Fathom HQ is the link, has an interactive goal seek where I can sit in front of my client and talk about these ratios and then change things and show them how they can improve their business results. And I have yet to meet a CEO who is not totally wowed by this one thing. And Fathom has a whole bunch of other capabilities as well. But this one feature really knocks their socks off. And again, sets you up for standing out from all the other advisors who are on the planet. So this goal seek screen, we set our financial objective, and there are a bunch of them that you can choose. Operating cash flow is generally the issue that everybody's wrestling with. And then you sit down, you put this on your Zoom screen and you share it with your client, and you start asking questions. You say, what's your goal? Is cash flow your biggest problem? Okay, what do you want to achieve? And you set the number that they give you. Maybe it's more than that. You type in, okay, you want to do 125,000. Okay, let's talk about what we can do to get there. And you're going to go, well, I don't know. I got to fire people or something. If I want more money, I got to fire all my staff. Well, let's look at it. So this is going to show us the factors that influence my ability to achieve that cash flow increase. It starts with price, volume of what we sell, and then the variable cost of sales. And so if I want to improve cash flow, Mr. or Mrs. Client, and price is the most sensitive thing that I can change, what is our flexibility on price? Can we just go in and raise our sticker price tremendously? If so, you can see the impact that has on your cash flow. Most of my clients, and in the wine industry and in most industries right now, we can't just go in and raise the sticker price, but there are underlying activities that we can undertake that will effectively raise the average price across all of the products that we sell. So in the wine industry, the average price that I see reflected on the financial statements is driven by a combination of the channel mix and the product mix. And so if I'm having a conversation with the client, I say, what can we do here? What's your ratio of wholesale sales to retail sales? Because wholesale has a lower margin. It has a lower price point as well. So if I can sell more retail and less wholesale, more e-commerce and less wholesale, then I'm going to effectively increase the average price that I achieve for my business. If I can sell more of my higher priced items, which in my industry is the Cabernet, and less of the Sauvignon Blanc, which is a lower price, then I can again raise the effective average price of what I'm selling. So those are the conversations that we want to get out of this whole dialogue. It's about generating a conversation. It's about not being afraid to have that conversation with your client. So then we can look at volume, we can look at cost. Now, this is an interesting aspect of this. It actually tells me to sell fewer units. Now, can you imagine telling your client, just sell less stuff and you'll be better off? Why this happens is that if in this model, it assumes that the relationships between all of these factors are constant. So for each sale that I make, I have a fixed percentage of receivables that I'm not collecting. So it says if I continue to sell this way and managing my inventory and my receivables and my payables the same way, it behooves me to sell less because I'm not collecting enough of what I'm selling in dollars. So that's how this works. It's a ratio between all of these different aspects, and it's assuming that ratio is constant. So by default, it says, if you keep selling more units with all of these other factors in the same relationship, you're going to sell yourself out of business because you're not generating enough cash based on how you're managing the balance sheet and other aspects of the business. So that's a conversational discussion point as well. If these are things that you don't intuitively know, by looking at this yourself, every time you look at a client, you're going to start to see what this is telling you and how to have the conversation around it. We might fire people. We love to fire marketing and sales. We're accountants. We like those people with the fancy shoes and people taking all the money out. But, if we do that, there's nothing to be sold next month. So we got to look at that carefully. But here's where they don't understand. This receivable days has a huge impact on cash. And that's why profit and cash are not the same. So I can sell a ton of stuff, but if I haven't collected it and it's all sitting in receivables, I'm not going to have cash in the bank. And so that's where you show that when they see that, and they see the impact of reducing inventory on hand on cash flow, they're going to be engaged with the whole financial discussion in a way that they've never been able to do before when you hand them that static after the fact financial statement. So I want you to really think about using Fathom. Again, this is one of many features. It has a really cool reporting capability. This license to Fathom is provided free with clients who have online advanced. And so they already have a license. So just take advantage of that. You don't even have to charge them anything extra, but you can add this value added service that you can charge big bucks for. Once a month, we have an hour-long conversation with the client. We look at their results as they happen. We don't have to wait for them to reconcile or tie everything out. We can look at sales and some of these actions. And then we can see from here if something is out of whack because the accounting wasn't completed, then we can help them go through and look at what the underlying problem is. But this is a great place to start with just advisory. We actually show our sample client winery in prospective customer meetings. We call them customers in our firm, client meetings. We bring up a sample and say, these are the kind of things we want to do with you. If you're open to this, if you're interested in more than just a tax return or financial statement, we'd love to have a dialogue with you and eventually with your teams where you can set some goals and then help hold you accountable to achieving them. And so it's a great sales tool. It's a great consulting tool. It's a great way for you to get started with advisory without a huge investment. I also have a spreadsheet I can share with you that is what to do around each of these things. So if you go through the goal seek and it says you need to raise price, I have a list of actions that you can do that support raising price. I have some things you can think about if volume is the thing you need to work on. So I have some detailed actions that I can share with you about what to do if each of these things need to be fixed when you get to this goal seek screen. So I'll provide my email and you can reach out to me and I'll send you that document if you're interested in that. And it'll give you more comfort in having a conversation around these aspects of what you're doing. So let's go back to the slides here and talk about that. So Fathom HQ, check it out. The what ifs, anything that has a what if interactive nature to me is the tool that I want. So I'm always asking these vendors, they're great tools out in the marketplace. And I always want to know where are the what if capabilities, because for me, that's what changes the dynamic with the client. It really lets them see things in a way that just printing something out or showing them a graph doesn't do. So that's level 2. That's really breaking down the conversational barriers that we have and helping them understand information in a different way. So the next thing we want to talk about is level 3. And this is where we really dig deeper into some of the aspects of the business. There are a ton of tools that are part of this methodology. They're looking at measures. We're looking at process. We're looking at all kinds of things, including things like the customer journey mapping. And then once we understand what's really going on in the business, the other aspect of level 3 is to go in and create plans for our clients. This is critical right now. They're struggling to get budgeting and forecasting in place. They need short-term, immediate cash flow management and planning. We can take the tools that are out there today and really leverage those in helping our clients do that. And there are a bunch of different tools that thankfully are available in the marketplace. But again, we're trying to help that client find their answers, and we're sort of supporting them in that journey. Again, we're not swooping in and just solving all their problems for them. We're really giving them tools that they can bring to bear on whatever issue they're trying to face. And so there's some planning tools. LivePlan is like the leader in planning and budgeting, really has some opportunities around startups. It does some great stuff in building the pitch and putting the whole story together, but it also has current actual data that you can pull in and then project forward from that. So check that out. And LivePlan has got some great people on their team, and they're doing some things with advisory as well, specifically around using this tool as part of your advisory service offering. What I like about Plan Guru is it's very detailed. So you can start at the sales level and then build from there. This graphic that you see on the screen is my Excel spreadsheet that I created for the wine industry. So I actually built a model myself. I teach forecasting and budgeting for wineries at a local university here. And I needed a tool that would start at the detailed retail side, the detailed sales calculations, because that's a big part of the complexity in my industry. So I actually went to SCORE, which is a website. It's Retired People in Finance, and they offer a bunch of tools for businesses. And I went to their website and I found a template for a cash flow a forecast model. And so I took that template and then I just modified it for the wine industry. So I have something to deliver that met the unique requirements of the wine industry. So those tools are available on the web as well. And there are other tools like this. The third planning tool that's, again, a cloud solution is called Giraffe. You've heard a lot about this. They're heavily marketed. They have some really cool dashboard stuff. But beyond that, there's a bunch of really detailed formulaic work that you can do. You can really build a model yourself. And it's one of the things that I haven't had the time to do yet for the wine industry, but this is one of the tools that I'm going to look to build industry specific models that I can then roll out across multiple clients. So I encourage you to look at that. It's one of the deepest ones I've seen, has a lot of capabilities, but the more capabilities you have, the longer it takes to sort of figure out what you want to do. And I just haven't invested the time, but they've got some great folks on their team that are really helpful that I've worked with, and I need to get back to that and do some more. And again, my client base is desperate for this stuff right now. But all of these, thankfully, integrate very easily and nicely with the QuickBooks Online applications. And again, set you apart from your competition in your space who aren't providing these kinds of proactive insights for clients. So we've talked about mindset, we've talked about tool set, and now we are ready to talk about new skills that we might apply. And I'm here to tell you that it's not really new skills. It's leveraging your existing skills in a different way. And so I want you to have confidence in your core skill set. We understand the transaction flow in businesses, and that understanding is the launch pad for everything else that we do. Our biggest problem is we don't have confidence in those skills, in our knowledge, and in our insights, in our perspective that we bring to bear. And you can get that confidence just by starting a dialogue with a client, and you'll see that you know way more than you thought. I mean, this was my challenge. I arrived at, again, wine industry. I don't know the wine industry. I don't know much about anything in this area. I don't, California is not my native land either. I don't understand many things, but I do understand accounting, and I know how to connect the dots between, no matter what industry you're in, there's a general ledger. So I can find my way to that. And if I can work through the transactional flow, I can start to make sense of the processes of the business. And that's where you start to add real value to clients, when you can understand the process flow and then help them automate aspects of that, and then help them do the accounting in a way that gives them, again, the insights that they really need. So when it comes to different approaches, what we need to think about is how we can get teams engaged in business results. And this is when we start to get to level 4 and 5, where we take skills like facilitation. And, facilitation is basically sitting at the front of the room, asking a bunch of questions, documenting the answers, and putting them up on a wall. That's facilitation. It's a scary thing because you're just asking questions, and you have to resist the urge to answer all of your own questions. But that's how you facilitate a group meeting, and it is a skill set that very few people have. And as questioners, as introverts primarily, as people who are deep thinkers, we are really good at listening. And so come up with a series of questions related to whatever problem you're trying to address, and then gather a meeting together, and then have people provide the answers. And we use a methodology, and we were trained as part of the Mentor Plus program that I went through. We had facilitation training. There's a group called, I believe it's called TOP, that we went through and got certification in being facilitators. But basically, you gather people in a room, you give them paper to write on, and I like to call them sticky notes, Post-it notes. We pass those out to people, and we ask questions. And we have them write down individual answers on an individual sheet, on an individual Post-it note. And then when we're all done writing down our stuff, we have them stick it on the wall, arrange it in categories, and then talk about what came out from the group. That simple thing, leading that group, allows people to get heard across an organization in a way that a typical brainstorming gathering doesn't. So what you do is, by having people write down their thoughts, even the quiet people get heard because they're all writing down and nobody's being over talked or nobody's opinion is being discounted. You get all that written down and then you share it. And then you see that, yes, people have similar ideas, but everybody in that room gets to be heard. And then you just organize the information and then show them what you got out of the meeting. And then you document it and send it out as follow-up. And you are the hero of that event. It doesn't require you to know everything again. It requires you to lead people to consensus, and that's what you're doing. So that's facilitation is another skill, and one that I use all the time. I'm doing stuff with nonprofits to just be the facilitator for meetings because few people are trained in how to do that. And then education. We can't, again, assume that because people are in leadership roles that they have ever had an opportunity to be trained in accounting terminology or financial statement management or metrics and measures or any of that stuff that we just expect somehow magically people acquire over the course of their career. And if you think about it, I mean, it doesn't happen. We just throw stuff at them. We ask them to do budgets with no guidance. We pass out the financial statement. I was a director in a software company. I'm the VP later. They'd pass out the financial statements, show us the results, and say, okay, now go back and increase revenue by 20%. And you'd be in the meeting and the CFO or whoever presented the financials would go, everybody get it? And everybody go, yeah, got it. Okay, I'm good. I'm going to go do it. And then you go out in the hallway and everybody go, I don't know what to do with this stuff. I'm just going to go back and do what I did yesterday. This didn't give me any insight into what I need to change to achieve whatever financial goal the company has set. And so it happens all the time. And so what we need to do first, before we expect somebody to produce the results that we want them to produce, is to give them some insight about what the numbers mean. And so one of the things we can do is that Fathom screen. Just show them. Receivable days, collecting on the stuff that you guys in sales generate is a big part of us being able to pay your salary. So not only do we want you to sell, but we want to make sure that we can collect on those sales later. And so that's why our accounting team has credit policies in place. So we want you to understand the implications of what you're doing and what the rest of the people in our organization are doing as well. So those conversations can be led by either the internal accountant or people coming in from outside and saying, let me just walk you through some of these financial statements and what this means. So we want to engage the teams with facilitating open discussions. We want to educate those teams. We want to empower those individuals in those organizations to behave differently in order to line up with the financial goals we're trying to achieve. And then what we can bring as skill sets is a new level of accountability. And this is one of our strengths. We are accountants. Let's hold people accountable. So what I have on the screen here is another skill that we can bring to bear for our clients. And this is just documentation. This actually came out of a class that I taught on point of sale systems. And if you've ever done any work with point of sale systems, you know that they are always interesting. Let's just say that way. From my technology experience, they were always one of the hardest applications to work through with and around, and tend to be older technology. And so we had people in our industry complaining about the point of sale applications not meeting their needs. So I said, come to this class and let's talk about what the issues and challenges are. And we'll see if we can come to some sort of a conclusion and work with these vendors in our local market to make it better. So I had them come in, and all I did was sit at the front and say, okay, tell me what happens in the tasting room on the retail side of the business. Tell me what happens when we have wine club, which is an aspect of the wine industry. What's going on in accounting when all this is going on? I set up the thing on the wall and had them just write things on sticky notes, and we organized them in a flow chart. And then we captured that, and I turned it into a printed document here that I sent back to everybody at the meeting. So now I'm the documenter, but I provided a service to them. I convened people together to share their ideas and perspectives. And then I documented what they shared and then sent it out to the folks. And now I look like a winery expert, right? Even though I'm just a flowchart creator. So at level 4, this is when we, again, really start to move the needle on our value and on the business results that we can help our clients achieve. Now we're taking that financial insight. So we've gotten the basics set up. We've asked questions about what owners look to for their decision results. We've shown them how to change the drivers that influence whatever financial outcome they're trying to achieve. And then we've helped them work through sort of what their core issues are. We've helped them redefine that. And then we've helped them build plans and models for future results and improvements. Now it's time to get those individuals on their teams in lockstep agreement with what they need to do, how they need to change their behaviors to achieve the goals that we've agreed on as a company are important to the business. So this is where we need to look for tools that really take the activity, take us back to the activity level. We take it out to the line worker level of what they're doing at their position and help them see what they need to change to contribute to our financial goals. So we're going to take all this information we've gathered from leadership, from owners, and then we're going to ratchet it down a level so that it is activity-based insight for everybody in the company. So here's the tool, an example of the tool, and this is just a screenshot of one. So what we do is take a given aspect of the business. So again, in my case, we're looking at e-commerce. Those are online web sales of wine or whatever products you're looking at. And we want to break that activity, and that's a revenue generating activity, right? We're trying to drive more revenue from our online sales. And we break that activity, that goal that we have for increasing revenue, and we look at the drivers of revenue for that particular aspect of the business. And so when we do that, we break it down. These are the things that influence our sales online. How many customers we have, how many customers we're adding every month, which relates to the marketing activities that have to happen before we start selling anything. Then we look at how many customers we're losing every month because we have some churn. We have people in and we have people out. And then we come up with a total customer count. And then from that, we look at, if we have this many customers, how often do those customers buy from our website? Now, obviously, we want them to buy often, not just once a year, but more frequently than that. And then we look at how many cases, once that person buys, what is their average case count? So how many units do they buy when they buy? And then we want to look at the dollars that purchase represents on average across all of our customer base. Those are the things that we can control to move the lever on revenue. And again, clients are not used to us accountants breaking this down to the point where it is actionable by their teams. So this is a spreadsheet. It's called the Profit Equation Planner. It's a tool that I got, again, from the Mentor Plus methodology that was really so enlightening for me because now I can do the leadership stuff. I can set the overall intention for the business. I can get them connected to the high-level financial ratios and metrics. And then we can create the business plan. And then I can get in front of the people who can make this happen and show them what to do to achieve these goals. So it's a whole set of things that fit together to get those results moving in the right direction. So let me show you this model. So this is a lovely spreadsheet. These are spreadsheets designed by an accountant, y'all. And I took this driver-based way of thinking that Mentor Plus, and Edie Osborne is the brains behind Mentor Plus. So I took the information she shared, and she has models for spas and different kinds of businesses looking at the different input metrics like this. And I took this and created a retail sales model. And I use this all the time in client situations. And again, it's my same sample winery that we're working with. But I take this into those meetings with the tasting room. So I do a core financial education for those folks. And then I say, and here's what you do that impacts these financial statements. And then I go to this and say, if I'm looking at driving more retail sales, that's driven by two main components: volume, how many units I sell, and the price point per unit on average. And then I have them tell me what things they want to change and show them the impact of that. So when you're talking to salespeople and you ask them, why can't they sell more? Their tendency is to point to the people prior to them in the chain of business process flow. So if I'm a salesperson in a tasting room, which is a retail facility, I'm in basically a storefront that has a bar and wine, and my job is to sell wine, my complaint is going to be that I can't sell enough because marketing isn't sending me enough visitors. So I'm always going to point to the step before me as the reason that I can't sell more. So with this model, if they say that's the problem, I can say, okay, I'm going to put 10 more visitors into the tasting room. So what I did is change the visitor traffic and it did not have any impact at all on revenue. This section of the graphic is where I can see if revenue is moving up or down based on the decision they've told me to make. I said, okay, I'm going to shove 10 more people in that space. That doesn't change anything unless you sell more of those people who come into the space. So let's not focus on that. Let's focus on no more people showing up, but you closing one more sale in that tasting room. Now look what happens. If I can get you to close one more sale out of that same number of visitors that appear, then I'm starting to make an additional revenue impact. And that's what you can control. You can't control what comes in, but once they're there, you can close a higher percentage of those folks, and then you can impact revenue. And if we're going to sell to one more person, what else can we do to drive revenue up? Well, maybe we can get that person. So my standard number of bottles is 4.62 bottles, which is a portion of a case. So if I can increase that to on average 5 bottles a day, which is that weirdo fraction, then you see the impact on sales. So now I see that my revenue's gone up to 96,000. So this spreadsheet and this conversation with the tasting room people empowers them to change their behavior tomorrow or as the day is going forward and focus on, let's get them to buy more people to buy, and let's get them to buy one more bottle a piece, and then we can achieve our revenue goals. And then we can just walk through all the things that they can change. They can tell me what's easiest to fix. And then those line workers, those people in that tasting room, can decide what they want to measure and where they want to focus each day. And now it's them driving it. It's not me imposing a metric that I put over them as a punishment weapon or, a reward-driven thing. It's now something that they have embraced and come up with that helps me align with the goals that I'm trying to achieve for that business. So that's how you move the needle. It's got to get to the line workers if you want to have real and lasting change. And when you do that, you are now at level 4 when it comes to client work. You have now helped them link those goals to their financial results, and you have helped them measure and report. So once you show them what activities are important, then you can really empower everybody in that organization to connect what they do to that. And one of the things about this, when we're working with clients and trying to drive behaviors, we have to make sure that those teams are getting feedback immediately. Again, timeliness, far more important than 100% accuracy in what we're providing to those people so that they can modify behavior midday. Much of what we are trained to do as accountants is, again, to report at the end of the process, to tell people what happened after everything is said and done. And what advisory, in my opinion, requires us to do is to start counting things sooner so that we can change behaviors before the P&L is created. So we can change the behaviors. If I know that every day I'm trying to get one more person who comes in to buy one more bottle of wine, then I can start counting my success as it happens every hour on the hour. I can say, okay, my average bottles per sale are now 4. I want to go to 5. What can we do? Get a huddle together. What can we do, folks, to get people to buy one more bottle of wine? And those people, the line workers, the people at the front of the battle, are going to come up with way better ideas than leadership or than we can come up with as external people, not knowing what really happens in the front line. And so that's the way we want to think about this as advisors. So when we get to level 5, our goal here is to just keep those leaders on track. We want to check back in with whatever is in place for them and make sure they are holding their teams accountable for their individual actions. And again, making metrics and measures, if we have provided them, visible to the people that we want to succeed. Here's another tool that we have. Again, spreadsheets are our go-to technology. This is just a basic activity calendar that we use. We created it in a spreadsheet, and we get people to commit to a deadline for completion, an activity they're going to own. We put their name in there, and then we make this our meeting platform. So every time we convene everybody together, we look at what's supposed to be happening, who's supposed to do what in what month. And then we code them red, green, or yellow. If somebody did something, we highlight it in green and say, look, Sally got this done. And we put red on Jan's thing. She didn't do whatever she was supposed to do. But we have an activity guide that we can just monitor and measure. Now, this is pretty clunky, so I'm sure you can find a prettier one. You can do something in Basecamp, or we use Monday.com inside our bookkeeping business. There are a bunch of fancy whiz-bang tools. But if you don't have those, just start with a piece of paper and putting people's names and date commitments on things. And these are the activities that we want to start measuring. So we have ratcheted down from the high level sort of financial statement perspective, which is very, very far removed from the underlying transactions and activities, down to individual activities. People are taking individual days across a period of time. And so now we've connected everything back to those high-level financial goals and objectives that we set. So again, hold them accountable, get their name, get their date, and then you can be the accountability person who checks back in with them every month when they meet to go over this. So there's, again, a consulting opportunity where you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to know how to keep people accountable to their goals and objectives. So, at the core of all this, one of the aspects, again, the things that I got exposed to by going through this training is this principle of Kaizen, which is a Japanese really production methodology that came out. It was started, I think, by Toyota and was used successfully in some of their manufacturing processes. But the concept really stands for continuous improvement. And that's what we're looking to achieve in our advisory and consulting work. And it's a gradual thing. So Kaizen is not about blowing things up in a big way and starting over from scratch. Kaizen is about a series of small improvements that you can take to have a huge impact on the overall business. And that's where we can really add insight. We can look at individual aspects of the processes that fit together to form a given outcome. And we can say, maybe we can improve this piece of this process, and that will have an impact on the thing we're trying to accomplish further along in that process. So that mindset is part of the shift that we make when we move into an advisory role. So we don't look for the do-all, end-all, final set in concrete measurement that's going to change everybody's life. We look for a series of small steps that we can take, starting at the level of the line worker, that employee in the front lines, and then going from there and connecting those dots back to the high-level financial goals and objectives of that business. So when we take the time to really listen closely, to ask different questions, and if we seek first to understand, we will find plenty of opportunities to become the kinds of advisors that our clients seek. Remember, our goal is to not be the experts, but to make our clients understand that they are in fact the experts, and to give them the confidence to make better decisions and to achieve the goals that they have in place and to weather this storm successfully. And so when you provide the kind of assistance that your clients crave, you suddenly discover that you have in fact become a hero or shero in the eyes of those clients, in spite of yourself. Your goal was never to have the banner that says expert or hero, but in fact, by being there in support of them and empowering them to do better things, you have ended up as a hero or shero, and you may or may not have the bronze statue to prove it. But your clients will appreciate you in ways that you could have never imagined. And it's fun, y'all. This is fun to come in there and show people things or ask them questions and they go, wow, I never thought about it that way. Or nobody's ever asked me that question. And when that happens and you see light bulbs go on and when they go, oh, I can do this. And when you see those teams go, oh, I just need to sell one more bottle of wine to each customer, I can do that. Y'all be careful when you come to Napa Valley because they're going to be trying to sell you that one more bottle of wine. We're educating them out here. So watch out. Hold on to your wallets, y'all. So with that, it's been my pleasure to share this with you. If you have any questions, you can email me, Geni@evenanerd.com. It's been my pleasure and honor to be here. It's a joy to be part of QuickBooks Connect online, and go forth and make great things happen for yourself and for your clients. Bye-bye.